Welcome back to my channel, everyone, and in today's episode I'm going to be talking about one of the 158 Toronto neighborhoods. Yes, you heard it right, 158 Toronto neighborhoods. Toronto is known as the city of neighborhoods. Now today we're talking about Cabbage Town, and Cabbage Town is located just east of the downtown core and a little bit north. But first, show reel, hit it. Welcome back to Living in Toronto, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about one of the 158 city neighborhoods in Toronto. And Toronto is known as a city of neighborhoods. So Cabbagetown is a neighborhood in central Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Administratively, it's defined actually as Cabbagetown-South and combined with Jamestown neighborhood. It largely features semi-detached Victorian homes, and it's also recognized as the largest continuous area of preserved Victorian homes in all of North America. Yes, all of North America. And that's according to the Cabbagetown Preservation Association. So you'll have to take it up with them if you don't believe me. They say that Cabbagetown's name is derived from the Irish immigrants that actually moved to the neighborhood beginning in, yes, the 1840s. And they're said to have been so poor that they grew cabbage in their front yards. And today, this is known as Cabbagetown, and it was first known as the village of Don Vale, just outside of Toronto. And before the 1850s, it consisted of farmland dotted with cottages and fresh vegetable plots. And it grew up in the 1840s around the Winchester Street Bridge, which before the construction of the Prince Edward Viaduct was the main north bridge over the Don River. In the late 19th century, the area was actually absorbed into the city and became part of the city. It also became home to the working class Irish inhabitants, primarily, who were employed by the industries along the lakeshore to the south of Corktown. Now, brick Victorian-style homes were built throughout the area. The name Cabbagetown purportedly came from stories of new Macedonian and Irish immigrants digging up their front lawns to, yes, plant cabbage. In this era, the Cabbagetown name most often applied to the area south of Gerrard Street, with the part of the north still being called Don Vale. It was a working class neighborhood with approximately 50% of the residents renting homes. It reached its peak of prosperity just before the First World War, which from when many of the brick homes in the area date back. The various architectural styles visible in the neighborhood range from simple empire to bay and gable, and also high Victorian terraces, and excellent examples being Francis Shields' house at 377 Sackville Street. After the war, the area actually became increasingly impoverished, and a large number of poorer residents actually moved in. Many resorted to sharing one house amongst multiple families. And the 19th century, brick homes actually began deteriorating as landlords saw less value in the neighborhood. They actually were not maintained very well. The area actually became known as a very rundown area at one point, And much of the original Cabbage Town was actually raised in the late 1940s to make room for the Regent Park housing project. And I talked about that in a different episode. And a new immigrant influx also led to the beginning of the ethnic diversity that we see in the area. And the remaining section of to the north that still was known as Don Vale was also slated to be cleared and replaced by housing projects as well. And now in 1964, a Toronto Star writer actually wrote that Cabbagetown has become a downhill ride, and if you're on the way up, you don't dare stay here very long unless you want to live in Regent Park. So that was quote unquote. So Cabbagetown actually was gentrified by affluent professionals beginning in the 1970s. And many residents actually restored their small Victorian row houses and became community activists. For instance, Daryl Kent, a resident and local businessman, is recognized by the community as having been the driving force behind many of the restoration projects that this area has actually seen in a lot of the homes. Vestiges of the 1960s, the counterculture, ambience still remains at vintage clothing stores, health food stores, and a Gestalt therapy clinic. Cabbagetown was an area of many notable residents. For instance, Doug Henning. He was a famous musician who lived at 94 Winchester Street. Henning studied magic as a teenager in Toronto. He was on Broadway, and he created and starred in several magic musicals. Emmy Award-winning Doug Henning's World of Magic was a TV show that made him one of the best-known and popular magicians in the world. Al Purdy was known as the most Canadian poet. He lived at 435 Sackville Street. He was called the best English language Canadian poet of the 12th century. He wrote 33 books of verse, although he lacked formal education. Purdy went on to win Canada's Governor General Literacy Award twice, as well as was awarded the Order of Canada. You may remember Gordon Sinclair. He was a giant in Canadian broadcast journalism. He began working as a reporter for the Toronto Daily Star in 1922. He traveled around the world 4 times as a wandering reporter. Following World War II, he became a prominent radio and television personality. In 1979, he was appointed an officer of the Order of Canada. A Victorian farm was actually once the site of a zoo, which is located adjacent to Riverdale Park West, where a weekly farmers market is actually held today. And a short distance away is the Cabbagetown Youth Center, home of the Cabbagetown Boxing Club, and a remainder of an earlier and rougher past. Neighbourhood is actually home to many artists, musicians, journalists, and writers. Other residents include professors, doctors, social workers, and many affiliated with the nearby University of Toronto. And there's also many hospitals nearby on University Avenue, so it's fairly close in proximity. The proximity to the financial district and the downtown core have made this area very popular amongst professionals. So there you have it, everyone. If you or anyone you know is planning on moving to Toronto, anywhere in Toronto, including Cabbagetown, don't hesitate to reach out on your favorite social media platform. Until next time, this is Pamela Haines from Homes by Pam, helping you with your real estate matters.